History hides secrets that are as fascinating as they are terrifying. Today, we explore the dark ingenuity of the human mind through 30 of the most brutal punishments ever recorded. Method 1. Yubitsume. For the Yakuza, a mistake wasn't just a failure, it was a debt paid in flesh. The ritual involved amputating a portion of the little finger to show absolute sincere apology to one's superior. It was a symbolic sacrifice intended to weaken the offender's sword grip and ensure total dependence on the group. Next is bastonado, a technique designed to break the spirit without ending the life. By striking the soles of the feet, executioners inflicted unbearable pain while leaving the victim alive to remember it. It was a lingering punishment, often leaving its targets unable to walk for years to come. Method 3. Pitchcapping, a gruesome practice used during the 1798 Irish Rebellion. Boiling tar or pitch was poured into a cap and forced onto the victim's head. When ripped off, it took everything with it: skin, hair, and dignity. A truly scarring ordeal. In Asia, specifically India, the elephant's foot was the ultimate royal judgment. Elephants were trained to either kill instantly or prolong the victim's agony by crushing non-vital parts first. It was a public demonstration of a ruler's absolute power over life and death. Ancient Rome gave us poena culi, the punishment of the sack, for the crime of parricide. The offender was sewn into a sack with live animals and thrown into the sea. It was meant to deny the criminal a resting place on earth, leaving them to the currents. Roman decimation was the ultimate test of military discipline and collective guilt. 1 out of every 10 men in a disgraced unit was chosen by lot to be executed. The catch? They were executed by their own comrades, ensuring the survivors never forgot the cost of failure. Blowing from a gun was a terrifyingly efficient method of execution used in the 19th century. The victim was tied to the mouth of a cannon, which was then fired. Death was instantaneous. It was designed to leave nothing behind, a final, total erasure of the individual. Byzantine Emperor Basil II left a legacy of sightless sorrow. After the Battle of Clydion, he blinded 15,000 Bulgarian prisoners of war, leaving only 1 man in every 100 with a single eye to lead the rest back home. Castor oil was turned into a tool of humiliation and physical distress. Victims were forced to ingest large quantities, then trapped in barrels until they confessed. It was a slow, agonizing process of both physical sickness and mental breaking. Immurement is one of the most chilling forms of imprisonment, being walled in alive. Sometimes meant as a life sentence, other times a slow execution by starvation. The silence of the wall was the final witness to the victim's last moments. The rack was the centerpiece of many medieval torture chambers, designed to stretch. It systematically pulled the limbs in opposite directions until joints dislocated and ligaments tore. It was as much a tool for interrogation as it was for permanent crippling injury. Tarring and feathering, a public humiliation that left lasting physical scars. Boiling wood tar was painted onto the victim, followed immediately by a shower of feathers. Beyond the burns, it was the social shame that was meant to break the individual. The choke pear was a mechanical nightmare, expanding within its victim. Whether in the mouth or elsewhere, it caused irreversible internal damage. A precise, cold-blooded design from the darkest corners of history. The Aztecs performed rituals for their sun god that were both sacred and terrifying. The priest would cut through the abdomen to remove the still-beating heart of the victim. It was a sacrifice of life to ensure the sun would continue its journey across the sky. The heretic's fork was a collar that forced a constant, painful posture. One end under the chin, the other at the sternum. It made sleep or rest impossible. As exhaustion set in, the points would slowly pierce the skin, a lingering torture for the mind. Roman Emperor Nero was associated with a method involving rats. A cup of hungry rats was strapped to the victim, then heated, forcing them to burrow. It was a visceral, primal fear turned into a calculated tool of the state. The Catherine wheel, or breaking wheel, was a staple of European execution. The victim's limbs were tied to the wheel and then systematically broken with a heavy bar. The broken victim was then left on display, a grim warning to all who passed. Boiling alive was a slow and agonizing end, reserved for the most serious crimes. The extremities were lowered first, where nerve endings are most sensitive, causing maximum pain. Sometimes the liquid was heated gradually, prolonging the awareness of the inevitable. Keel hauling was a maritime punishment that few survived. A sailor was dragged under the ship's keel, where sharp barnacles acted like thousands of knives. If they didn't drown, the infection from the wounds would often finish the job. Sawing was a method designed to maximize consciousness during the end. By hanging the victim upside down, blood stayed in the head, keeping them awake longer. It was a methodical, horrifyingly slow process of division. Hanged, drawn, and quartered, the ultimate penalty for high treason in Britain. It involved a sequence of hangings, mutilations, and final division into 4 parts. The The remains were sent to the corners of the kingdom as a final, absolute warning. Glastration is a method that sounds as painful as it was rare. It involved internal injury using glass shards, a truly sadistic innovation. It represents the depths of cruelty that the human mind can sometimes reach. Bamboo torture used the natural world as a slow-motion executioner. Victims were placed over growing bamboo, which could grow several inches a day, piercing the body. Nature's own growth turned into a silent, unstoppable force of death. The Spanish donkey forced the victim to bear their own weight against an edge. Weights were added to the feet, pulling the victim down onto the sharp wooden point. It resulted in catastrophic injuries to the spine and lower body. The brazen bull, a hollow bronze statue that became a furnace. Pipes within the bull turned the victim's screams into the sound of a bellowing beast. A theatrical and horrifying spectacle of ancient execution. Impalement is perhaps the most visually terrifying method of all. It was a slow descent, where gravity itself became the executioner over several days. A brutal and public display of absolute crushing power. Flaying, the methodical removal of the skin while the victim remained alive. It was a meticulous and lengthy process, meant to cause the ultimate sensory overload. The psychological terror of this method was as great as the physical pain. The blood eagle, a Viking ritual of terrifying symbolic precision. The ribs were separated from the spine and spread like wings, a final dark tribute. An agonizing and deeply spiritual end for the enemies of the North. Lingqi, or death by 1,000 cuts, was the ultimate prolonged end in China. Executioners would meticulously remove tiny portions of the body over hours or days. It was a methodical erasure of the person, cut by agonizing cut. Finally, Scaphism, the worst execution method ever devised, the boats. Victims were force-fed and smeared with milk and honey to attract insects and parasites. They were then left to nature's slow and horrifying consumption over many days. History's darker chapters remind us of the depths we've traversed. As we step back into the light, we remember the cost of the path we've walked. Join us next time as we uncover more of history's mysteries.